We are here for one of two films that Russ Emanuel has an Art is Alive Film Festival, and the first of which is the short film Quarantine. Russ is no stranger to Art is Alive. I feel like he's been living here for like since the inception almost. So I have some new and interesting questions to ask about with you, and then we'll kind of bounce around and see what we can figure out about Russ. So I want to start off with 2002 being the beginning of Russ M Productions. When you first started off, compared to now where you're at today, are you where you wanted to be? Meaning, were the goals that you set for this production company being met today, or do you still feel like you've got a ways to go?
I think as an artist, we all have, a journey. So,
Mhm.
I mean, if I had reached all my goals, then what's the point, right?
Sure. That is true.
So,
Yeah.
but that said, yeah, I meant when I started out, I was making my first short film called Her Night. That's 2002. I learned a lot of lessons from that film because
Sure.
I mean, I made a lot of mistakes. But I learned, and then I made my second film called Girl with Gun. And Girl with Gun, that I did with and I'm gonna do a shout out to my late filmmaking partner, Emil Harris, who
Mm.
has worked with me on every film, including Quarantine, up
Yeah.
to his passing in 2023, and Staycation, of course, which is the feature version of Quarantine.
Mhm.
But he and I started the films together. So he's basically worked on every single one of my films, every one of them. But Girl with Gun got the attention of my soon-to-be producer, Howard Nash, and he
Mm.
hired me to do my first feature film called PJ, and it had the late John Hurd, the Home Alone dad.
Yeah.
Vincent Pastore. It had Heather McComb. It had no, I'm sorry, Heather McComb was my second feature film. I get my actors mixed up. I,
That's
I
okay.
apologize to my actors. But it had Robert Picardo of Star Trek Voyager. And it was a star-studded cast. I was 29 years old. One of my goals was to direct a feature film by the time I was 30.
Mm.
So I had accomplished that goal. Back then I was 29,
Oh
and that
gosh.
was like 2006,
Sure.
2007. So I'm aging myself right now. But yeah, so I reached my goal. In fact, I was directing my second feature film, Chasing the Green, the one with Heather McComb,
Yep.
had Bill Devane, had Jeremy London, had Ryan Hurst. I mean, it was, and we were filming, and the producer Howard, he threw me a surprise birthday, cake bash, while we were filming. It was like
Yeah.
day 20 or something. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like so surreal. All the cast and crew were like clapping, and I'm just getting this pineapple cake, which was delicious.
Aw.
But yeah, that was one of my goals, to direct a feature by the time I was 30.
Yeah.
And now, I'm 48, and I'm about to direct my seventh feature film. So, hopefully, knock on wood,
Mhm.
lucky number seven.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, I'm very content. I'm very lucky. I'm very grateful of my 20 plus year journey. Hopefully, there's more. We will see. Nobody can tell the future, right? But
Oh,
yeah, I
absolutely.
love making films. I love working with, other passionate artists like yourself. And thank you again for, having my films in your festival and awarding my film. So I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just very grateful. I'm grateful to be here. I have a lovely family. My husband Eddie is, is sleeping in the other room right now because he works restaurants. So
Oh,
hopefully I'm not
gotcha.
waking him up. My
Sure.
my lovely parents, Charles and Akemi Emanuel, they've been so
Yeah.
supportive. Just everybody, we're gonna be meeting together for Christmas in a couple
Oh,
days. So yeah,
nice.
I'm very happy. Yes.
Very nice. Yeah, we should talk about your husband because we don't get a chance to do that much. And I know obviously you mentioned he's not in the creative arts, so to speak. However, have you ever found an occasion to try to entice him, either partnering up to write with you or just even cameo or do something just to get more into your world?
He's in staycation. I forced him
What?
in there. He's one of the zombies.
Oh
Yeah, he's in the
no.
jail. The jail scenes. Just keep looking. You'll see this Asian guy, and that's him.
How did that go over? Like, was it like a big, huge deal to get him to do it?
I wanted. So he does restaurants. So I've been at his restaurants. I've seen him work,
Sure.
and I will say, hey, you got to see me work. You got to see
Yeah.
what it's like to direct a film.
Right.
And honestly, he spent most of the day just lumbering around because, we were doing other scenes, right? So he's like having his earphones in the green room and just, lounging. I mean, I mean, it's kind of boring for a lot of people,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Until their scenes are up, then what can they do?
Right.
But then he's put into the makeup chair, 20 minutes, zombieing up, and then he's put on set and I direct him. Yeah, he
Oh,
did a good job.
nice.
I thought he
Very
did a good
nice.
job.
I'll have to go back and look at this now. I'm
I'm
intrigued.
biased, but I thought he did a good
Of
job.
course. Now, to those that may not know, you are a writer and producer and a director and an award winning in many of these areas. However, there was a time where you used to study international relations, which I did not know until recently. So, what have we done with all of that background and studying? Anything, or what does that qualify you to? I mean, what do you do with that?
Well, it helps me to connect with, like, for social media with, other countries, I guess, to publicize myself.
Okay,
That's IR, international relations.
got it.
I meant either finding investors all over the world, working with actors all over the world, publicizing my films and film festivals all over the world.
Sure.
I think IR does help, because you have to think globally, I think, when
Yeah.
you make a film, especially a feature film.
Oh,
It's
God,
it's
yeah.
a it's very global, right?
Mm,
You have the different film markets.
yes.
You have to sell to the different territories. If you want to, for a feature.
Yeah.
You could do it for a short, but it's, definitely for a feature. So yeah, that's why I think IR comes in. Now, I did have an international background. I did grow up in both Japan and the United States. So, for me, I think very globally,
Mm,
not just, one country, but everybody, the whole earth.
very nice.
Mhm.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier, which I don't want to forget to talk about, is please tell the rest of us or the people that are watching something or a few things that they would not know about Emil, because obviously he's not here to speak for himself and we won't get to know him. So, what do you want us to know about him?
Well, so I went to USC. That I grew this University of Southern California, and
Hmm.
emphasis in IR, cinema, and Japanese.
Yes.
But I then took extension courses at UCLA, which is our rival school to USC. But
Mm,
the only rivalry I care about is with football. But other than that, I love both schools. So I took
okay.
some extension courses, and I met at Emil. I call him Harris. I've always called him by his last name.
Okay.
But his first name is Emil Riza Harris. I met him in a directing class or cinematography class, and we decided we got along. He's from Singapore. He was an exchange student at that point, and he just loved films, and I love films, and we said, let's do something together.
Yeah.
We used to eat out a lot. We used to go to restaurants, like sushi restaurants. He loved eating this certain beef jerky called Alien Fresh Jerky. And I have to say, I was able to visit his grave about a week ago. He's buried in Rosamond, and I brought him that jerky.
Oh,
Rosamond's close to where that jerky place is. It's like Baker. If
sure.
you know anything about Los Angeles, it's on the route to Las Vegas. So it's
Okay.
like this one place called Baker.
I got it.
So it's close, and then where he's buried is close to Baker's Field.
Okay.
And it was on my journey from Vegas to San Francisco. So I was able to see him. Anyway, he loved that Alien Fresh Jerky. Every time I went, past that the Baker Town, I always got it for him. So yeah,
Oh.
I decided to do that. He's was a very private person. He's was very good with words. I mean, his writing skills are just amazing. I
Mhm.
mean, I maybe a writer, but I'm not a writer like he was. He's a writer. He was a writer, a really good writer, really
Sure.
good with the horror genre, really good with the psychological stuff. I meant, yeah. And I miss him. I meant, and
That's
I'm making a new feature, and it's the first one without him.
mm,
So I hopefully got his blessing. I talked to him about the new feature, when I visited him, and yeah, I told him, I miss him, love him, and hope he's doing well, and
yeah.
yeah.
There you go. Thank you for
Mhm.
that.
You're welcome.
Um, to those that may not know this, you've been making movies for apparently 23 years, it looks like.
Oh my
Fun
gosh,
fact.
23.
Fun fact. He has made a movie every year except for 2011, 16, 21, and 23. So I'm
Really?
curious about, yeah, that's actual research. So I want to know why Russ was not making movies in 2011, 16, 21, and 23. Well, pandemic time is two of those. I get that. But what about the rest of them? What's with the 2011 and 2016?
Oh well, so, to make a film, especially a feature, sometimes takes years,
Oh, sure.
years of your time.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Sometimes maybe I was in post-production. I mean, I can't recollect, to be honest, off the top of my head, but sometimes I know with Emil Harris's passing, I needed kind of a year off, and I was
Okay.
just finishing up post-production. But when he passed away, it was a big wake-up call for me. And I just needed to regroup, This new feature I'm doing called All for Tomorrow, my first feature without him, is actually a story that I created, I wrote.
Okay.
It's about a guy, and I realized he's going through a midlife crisis, and he's coming to terms with mortality. I'm thinking, who else is going through a midlife crisis dealing with, mortality? It's me.
Sure.
Obviously, it's me. I'm going, oh my gosh, I wrote myself. Of course, I wrote, myself into this,
Sure.
but it turns out the main character, his name is Pete Harlan, the character he's going to be played by the amazing Drew Martin.
Right.
That, I've worked with him before on Staycation and Assassin's
Hmm.
Apprentice too. But yeah, he's gonna play me, basically, coming to terms with mortality, with his life, that's what the film is about. It's kind of a mystery with a sci-fi twist to it. So, you know, um, getting back to your point, what was I doing on those years? I may have been post-production. I may have been taking a break, because you can't work nonstop. You got to
Right.
have more to do than just film. Otherwise, what's the point of enjoying life,
Yeah.
like with my
Exactly.
husband Eddie, or with my parents, or with my
Yeah.
friends,
There you
or
go.
just eating out with Harris. That's, we just want to hang out. So yeah.
There you go. Now, if you guys can see behind him, you might notice that there's an award or
Oh,
two, just a few. And then on top of which, he goes in 2025 and gets inducted into the International Indie Filmmakers Hall of Fame.
yeah.
So there are a lot of filmmakers that do film because they have to, because it's their passion. There are some that do it because they want to get fame. There's some who want awards. So when you found out about this induction, what did that mean to you? And also, from a filmmaker standpoint, does it make it easier award wise? Meaning, the more credible you become in that regard, does it make it easier for financing or getting movies made and things like that?
Yeah, it does. I'm very grateful for all this. But this basically, when you get into a festival, win awards, or for me, getting my actors awards really is
Yeah,
something for me because I'm a director. So,
sure.
hopefully I know how to direct actors, right? So I'm very happy when my actors get nominations or awards. And thank you for the
Yes.
nomination for Bailey
Yes.
for Quarantine. No, it does help, when I approach an investor, they want to know what I've done.
Yeah.
They want to know what I've won, and if I could just say, you could just go on Wikipedia or, IMDb and just look me up. You could see my films on Tubi TV. You can, it's all there.
Hmm.
Tubi, for anybody who doesn't know, it's a free service. You look up Russ
Yeah.
Emanuel, it's just a name right here, right? It's
Yep.
I typed on the Zoom. Look it up. It's yeah, those are my films. So yeah, it helps. And I've had the privilege and honor of working with a lot of actors, like name actors.
Yeah.
In Staycation, I've worked with Kelly Maroney or Sean Kenny or Olivia Dabo. I mean, Olivia
Hmm.
Dabo was in Quarantine.
Yeah.
And these hopefully, people want to, work with me or invest in me. They can see that, and they know I've done this. So yeah, it does help. It's
Yeah.
it's a resume. So what you see behind me is a resume. This is my
Yeah.
resume. It's for as much as I'm grateful for this, it's really for future work, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
hopefully somebody wants to work with me in the future, like this new film, All for Tomorrow. People, invested in me for this new one. I'm super grateful, that they
Yeah,
do this, and I'm going to put my 150% all in on making any film I do.
of
But yeah.
course. Yeah. Also, on top of which, he's in the top 100 indie filmmakers in the world. So I guess we got to talk about that one. So if a budding young filmmaker or a veteran filmmaker watches this and they're asking themselves, how does one become the top of anything in their market or in the world per se? What do you personally, just looking at this yourself, what do you think it is that made them say, yeah, you know what? Yes, it's him.
You mentioned how, people, there are filmmakers who like to make films because they love film. I love film. It's the music of John Williams. I mentioned this many
Yep.
times, John Towner Williams, Maestro Williams, I call him. And he's composing the score for Spielberg's new film, Disclosure
Mhm.
Day. And he's 93 years old, and his score for Indiana Jones 5 is stellar. And,
Uh-huh.
that's the one he did before this. And this guy is so mentally sharp. I mean, I've been listening to his score since like Superman, Richard Donner Superman in
Oh
1978.
gosh.
I was like 5 years old. No, 1970. I was one. But my parents were saying I would watch that film over and over and over again. And I know it's because of the music. And then for me, it was the scene in Jurassic Park, in the helicopter. They're approaching Isla Nublar at the
Oh
beginning of the film.
yeah.
And then the music is just so amazing. And it complements the cinematography, the acting, everything. And it
Hmm.
makes you want to visit Jurassic Park. Even before you saw the dinosaurs, it brings out those goosebumps. I get those goosebumps thinking about this all the
Oh
time.
yeah.
So yeah, that's why I make film. Getting into the top 100 or, being inducted, somebody nominated me. I don't know. With the top 100, it was something founded by the late Del Weston. He was
Hmm.
founder of the Action on Film Festival, and he passed away a couple of years ago. So hopefully, rest in peace to him. But yeah, I was just super grateful. I mean, I just do my best for every film. I give my
Yeah.
150%. I try my best. Whether that translates to people actually enjoying the film, I don't know. It's subjective, right? It's up to each individual person. What was it? The filmmaker, was it Ava? She was mentioning Escapist Fair.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what films were, to escape. Like especially in the Great Depression, people went into the movie theaters, right, to escape, their miserable lives, because they couldn't, afford work or anything because it was the Great Depression time. And they would go into a movie theater and hopefully for 2 hours they can escape from their misery, and
Yeah.
that's what it was called, escapist fare,
Hmm.
and of course they had air conditioning. That didn't hurt. Back then air conditioning was a kind of a premium, right? In the 30s.
Oh, no
But
kidding.
yeah, you escape. And hopefully when they watch my films, if it's staycation, they escape for 94 minutes. If it's a quarantine, they escape for 15 minutes. Just hopefully they're entertained, whether they're, thrilled or they laugh or, whatever emotion brings out.
You
Whatever,
bet.
if it entertains, then hopefully I did my job. And, it's up to each individual person.
Hopefully he did his job. I
Yeah.
guess as a longtime filmmaker, one of the things I always like to pick brains about is, and this is more so for either again, young filmmakers or veteran filmmakers, is there something that you learn about yourself as a director or as a creator on each set? Is there one piece that you take away from each production and keep that with you?
Oh, always. I mean, that's the thing about, I think we all learn until the day we, have to meet our maker.
Yeah.
Every film, Her Night I mentioned, I made so many mistakes. I was co-editing and the pacing was off, I thought I knew everything and it was Oscar worthy. I mean, I was completely deluded, and it set me in my place. And because
Yeah.
of that, I learned the lessons from that film and made Girl with Gun, and I started focusing on what I was good at, not what I was
Sure.
not good at.
Oh,
And I think
right.
it did work. I mean, it worked. There are, again, Girl with Gun. I mentioned in the interview, that one of the interview questions is, what do you regret on that film? We were supposed to do a drug scene, and at the beginning of the film, it's supposed to be a shootout. And I said,
Oh,
you know what? Let's not do it because it's just too much money. And I
okay.
always regretted that decision to this day because I knew if we had done that scene, it would have just made that film that much better.
Yeah.
and it wasn't a bad film, but it would have just catapulted that film, and it's been a big regret. So you always have regrets, you always learn.
Yeah.
Every film, with a Staycation, in quarantine, we filmed that in November 2020, and that was before the vaccines. So it was very, very strict COVID compliance because we had to work with the Screen Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA,
Oh,
right?
right,
And they
right.
were very strict. I mean, incredibly strict. You had to have what's called a
Yeah.
CCO, which is a COVID compliance officer, and there was very strict. Like every hour, the set that we were on in Vision 8 Studios, it's an actual film set, right? Studio.
Okay.
You have to open up the doors and air out the place. It doesn't matter if you're in the middle of a 9-minute take and you're 8 minutes into it. They're like, okay, stop, air it
Oh,
out.
Lord.
Yeah, the efficiency was awful. We probably spent maybe 10-20% of the budget just on COVID compliance.
That's
So did I
crazy.
learn lessons from that film? Oh yeah.
Oh my God, that's terrible. I don't mean to, I mean, but that, I understand the need for safety, but it's like, yeah, there's some of those things on there where you just shake your head and I'm like, it makes it impossible, it's whatever circumstances. So obviously, as a filmmaker, it seems, I guess the other question is this: if you are not a Russ and you are not at the point where you've established yourself to where it's easier to walk into rooms and get financing and get noticed, any tidbit, especially walking into 2026 with things are as they are and so tight and changing in the industry, what do you do to get something done?
Well, when I was making films, we were still doing mini DV, and at the very beginning, there was actual film. What is
Yeah.
film now? I don't know.
Uh-huh.
Actually cutting film? Yeah, nobody does that anymore.
I know.
2026, you could even make films on your iPhone. I saw, what is it,
Hmm.
28, oh, not 28 days later, 28 years later? Yeah, it
Oh,
was shot
yeah,
on the
yeah.
iPhone. It was shot on the iPhone. Of course,
Amazing,
they
isn't
had,
it?
camera equipment and,
Oh,
actual,
right.
lenses and everything, but they shot with the iPhone. iPhone is shooting what, 4K? 4K
I,
resolution. You could
I
shoot on your
know.
iPhone. Yeah. I couldn't, there was no iPhone when I was making Girl with Gun in
I know.
2004.
It's like
I,
crazy to me that you can take a phone and actually make a production on it. It's like it's so wild to me.
it's
I'm like, what?
nuts.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
I mean, it's the technology today is just, yeah. I mean, I think anybody who's, growing up or is in high school or starting off college and they want to make films, it's, I think, a lot easier now because of, phone technology like your phone.
I agree with you.
It's just something that did not exist
I
when,
know.
we were growing up. So,
The times are changing. That also
yeah.
reflects age. So now you all know that we're both, thank you, aging creators. That's wonderful, Russ.
We're both
Thanks.
young. Come
Thank
on.
you. Thank
I
you for that.
swear. Age is a number. That's what I always say.
Thank you.